And welcome back again, everybody. Thanks for joining us again today. So glad you could be here with us. We're excited to get back and share some more information with you today. And as usual, with me here again is Sandy McKay. What's going on, Sandy?
Hey, Rob. I am doing fantastic and excited for another show. Got lots of good stuff to talk about. Interesting real estate world right now. It's really interesting.
Interesting is the right word for sure.
Yeah.
It's kind of slowed down.
For sure, it's slowed down in Southern Ontario, at least. I've reading all sorts of different articles around North America and I guess different parts of the world that are pretty interesting and different. It's always like everything. It's always kind of neighborhood specific, right? And reading the generic stuff is kind of very minimally useful. You always got to look at a little more local and figure out what. So everyone probably, if they're listening now in early 2022 here, spring 2022, we're talking about the market being a little bit softer and slowing down, maybe going backwards in prices a little bit in some cases. And I could go find you probably 20 markets in Southern Ontario right now that are actually up in price in the last month, if you really look at it, right? So and you can probably find some that are down 20% or more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very interesting.
And yeah, so lots of interesting things out there.
And I find that the strategy of holding offers is definitely still working. Like, I think that that's still the way to go for most sellers. Just because I'm finding, at least out in the Durham area, is you don't get the traction if you try and play straight up. Try and list at what the seller actually wants, right? So, it seems to still be the way to do it.
I know it's everything. It's like there's so many different things out there. The investors are definitely slowing down a bit. They're trying to being a little more cautious from what we're seeing. And yet, I mean, we're talking to them all the time around the fact of maybe this is still the best time. Maybe it's the best time that you're going to see for years. You just never know, right? And it's hard to sit around waiting for the quote unquote crash that might never come. And so that's one of the things we're talking a lot about. That's my mindset, at least, is that we should be buying properties anytime, depending on unless it's an absolute world-ending crash of some sort that's happening. We should be always active and looking. A great deal is a great deal.
Sandy, I know people that have been waiting for the last 6-7 years for the crash. Of course, yeah. It's always definitely a good time to get into the market. And that's why we're here sharing more information of how people can do that. So everybody listening should go over to our website, breakthroughreipodcast.ca. There they can download our free gift. Right, Sandy?
Yeah, the ultimate strategy for building wealth through real estate. And they can also learn about everything else we got going on when they do that. So they'll get on our, our email lists and learn about everything we got going on. Property tours, seminars, webinars, whatever is happening, you'll learn about it all through that and get that gift as you go and do that. We are revamping some things. I think in the next little while, you'll see some really cool, maybe even by the time this episode's out, you'll see some cool new updates to our websites and some of our social platforms. So go follow us if you're not already and check us out. You can find us on all over social media, YouTube, and our website, brrrrs.ca, like we mentioned.
Yeah, just Google Breakthrough REI Podcast. Yeah. Now we say this all the time, Sandy, and it is an absolutely free gift that we give away on our website. But we seldom talk about what it is that they're actually going to get, because some people might be going, maybe I don't know. I hear them say it all the time, but I don't know what it is, and maybe it's not worth it. So I'm just not going to bother. Like, what are they going to get? What is it?
It's kind of the foundational piece to how we built a lot of our wealth in real estate, right? I think that's a lot of the strategy, the really fundamentals of what the strategies we've used for the most part to build out our portfolios. And I mean, it's a great starting point. It
digs a lot into like how to add value and then use that to increase the value of your property and roll over into more purchases.
Yeah, for sure. And we're going to talk a lot about that on the show, actually. So it's a great one to go pick up. If you're listening in on this, maybe go grab it, pick it up, and follow along as we talk through some of those similar points here on this show.
And then, like Sandy mentioned, you'll be able to keep up on all of our events and things that we have going on. And we've nailed down a date for in conjunction with Durham REI, we've got our Costa Rica 3-day event that we're going to have. And so the date for that is going to be November 18th, 19th, and 20th of this year, 2022. Don't have much more details other than the date right now. We've got the accommodations nailed down. It's going to be right here in Playa Potrero, where I am, and we're going to be exploring the area and just seeing all the things that Costa Rica has to offer, and of course, seeing some investment opportunities here too.
That's super exciting. So that's a big announcement. That's awesome. What's happening in Costa Rica? Like, can we do a little quick minute glimpse of what's happening down there? Are you
yeah, I mean, the market's on the rise, right? Like, so it's fairly dependent on what's going on in US and Canada, but right now things are definitely on the rise. We've seen increases depending on what you're looking at. I mean, it's still such a like Wild West, I guess, Wild South market, because it's not really like the prices aren't based on anything other than what the seller wants to get.
It's not regular.
If somebody wants to pay that, then they can have the property. That's really all it is, And so I find
there's no MLS system. Is that right? There's no MLS.
There isn't right
there's
now.
About to be, maybe.
Yeah, there's sort of a beta that they're working on right now, but it's privately run. It's not. There's a bunch of ins and outs that are just too much to talk about right now. But it's not necessarily going to be an MLS in the same way as you have there. But it's, I guess, going to be the next best thing. We'll see. But right now, like I can't.
Comparables and that are like.
If our guest Cole here is waiting patiently, if Cole was to say to me, Rob, I want 3-bedroom condos on the beach, I can't just do an MLS prospect search like I would there for him and, have them show up in his inbox every day. It's a lot more searching and trying to find what the person wants, going to everybody's, like each individual broker's websites and finding what matches with what they want and sending it out to them that way. Mm-hmm. So there is definitely a lot more to it, but no, on the rise. And I would say, like, if somebody sold for 300, then in like a certain complex, then the next person's going to just say, I want 15% increase on whatever the last person sold for.
Right.
So, but it's definitely on the rise, and now is the time to buy here because it's beautiful, it's sunny, and you can't beat that.
Yeah. And all sorts of reasons why people might want to look there. So, I mean, I know you're coming out with some more content around that in the near future too. So, lots of cool things around that for people interested in
Costa Rica. I don't even have a website to go to yet. You can listen to our new podcast, Breakthrough to Costa Rica. It's on all the platforms, it's on Spotify and iTunes and Podbean, wherever you listen to it. We've got a couple episodes out now, but they're full of good information.
Cool.
Yeah.
Lots more on that to come then, I guess, November, that'll be exciting.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any events to talk about? You're always doing events.
Let me think. We do. Good question.
Sorry to put you on the spot like that. Like, you have an event every week. I guess it's just that you don't know which one's coming up next.
We're debating. We are going to do some more investment related ones in the summer, or rolling into the fall for sure. So we're actually just planning a bit more around that. I should say we do have one coming up that's kind of exciting. That might be perfect timing for this one, which is on June. It's going to be June 15th. I'll have more info on that, or you can find it if you reach out to me directly. I could certainly share it, or just follow me on social media, as you'll see it in the very near future. But we're doing an event on the 15th, all about Airbnbs and basically vacation home rentals, and how to do that in some of the Southern Ontario markets, cottage country, Niagara region, that sort of market. And actually, we got a guest coming out. We're going to do an evening full of that. That's going to be pretty interesting, and something I'm looking forward to learning a lot more about. I haven't dabbled into that space fully yet, although we have had some Airbnbs. They haven't really been purchased with that thought in mind from the beginning. And it's an interesting market right now with that, because ever since COVID started, obviously that market's gone crazy. However, there's a lot of things people don't know about that. HST, for example, that people have not realized they might need to pay one day. Things like that people just aren't aware of, and like every other market, it's very niche, and different markets have different rules and all that sort of thing. So we're going to talk pretty in depth on that. So that'll be a cool one coming up, June 15th.
Right on, June 15th. Okay, where can they find out more about it?
Exactly, the question that I don't know the answer to right now. Just as long as you're following me and on Instagram, Facebook, whatever, you'll definitely see it soon. We can probably blast it out on our breakthrough page too when that comes up, which will be sometime before June 15th. Probably if you're listening to this, it might already be available. So go check it out.
Hopefully it's not June 14th.
Hopefully not.
Okay, great. Yeah, well, that's awesome.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to that one, actually.
Yeah.
So let's get to our guest. We're really excited to have Cole Hutchinson with us today, and welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm happy. I'm happy to be here for sure.
Yeah, welcome. We'll get into your story, of course, more, but quickly, Cole grew up playing hockey like every great Canadian. Moved around a lot, and I played in multiple different cities all across North America. Ended up in some minor pro leagues in the US and came back, and then it looks like I kind of got into real estate pretty quickly. Kind of went down the electrical apprenticeship routes and working pretty hard probably through that. We'll get into how you kind of parlayed from that into real estate, but you certainly have a contractor type of background, probably pretty handy with things around the house. And then started realizing that you should probably buy some of these places and start investing at ripe age of 21, 22, early on. And we'll talk a little bit more about your first deal and what that looked like. And I know we focus on flips and BRRRS primarily, so we'll get into your journey with that. And it's pretty cool starting out at that young of an age. You're well ahead of the average by at least 10 years.
So, most likely.
Yeah. So I think it's pretty inspirational. I'm looking forward to learning more about how you got into this. So why don't you tell us a little more about your background and how you ended up in real estate at such a young age?
Absolutely. So basically, I came back from the States after playing hockey down there, and it was kind of interesting playing down there because you're playing with a lot of people who are late 20s, early 30s, kind of still holding on to the dream, right? Of maybe making it to the NHL one day and things like that. And I think I just realized at an early age that I wanted to start making real money. We were making a bit down there. It wasn't anything crazy. Start making real money. I decided to stop playing hockey and come home, and I got into my electrical apprenticeship, and it was kind of the same thing. I really enjoyed it. I've always been on a hands-on type of person. I really like working a lot. Started working 80-hour weeks. Any hours I could take, I was taking it. And I think that I was always interested, in real estate at a young age. It was always kind of cool to think about that other people could pay down your mortgage and things like that, right? And I think everyone I knew, even the boss of the electrical company, or every person that I knew of that was doing really, really well, they either invest in real estate or invested their money elsewhere, or they own the companies that they were working for, or they own the companies that they previously worked for, and things like that, right? So I think I just really wanted to get started in real estate around 2021, but obviously that was really, really tough. I didn't really have T4s. I didn't have years of experience or income to qualify at the banks and stuff like that. So I tried probably in 2015, early 2016 for a long time. It was probably a good year, just applying at banks and talking to people, and even my parents, the banks, everyone was telling me, just wait, 2-3 years, you'll be 24, 25, you'll have worked, 4 or 5 years, and you'll have the income to purchase, right? But I've just always been a very, if a thing's in my head, I really try my best to just, really try to make it happen, right? So it was early 2016. I think I was in my first term of my apprenticeship, so pretty early. I was making really good money because of the hours I did work. I was traveling around, Canada too. I was willing to go out of town, in town, work on holidays, and everything. And I finally found a private lender to give me a mortgage. in Uxbridge, which is where I currently still live, just north of Ajax in the Durham region. And I hadn't done anything before like this, but my dad knew like quite a bit about houses and stuff. And I completely tore everything out on the inside. It was a single family home on a 200-foot lot, and I converted it to a legal duplex. And part of me converting it to a legal duplex was I started listening to your guys' podcast actually at the I think it was early 2016. And I think at that time you guys had like maybe 20 or 30 episodes out. And I started from the beginning, and I was listening to on the way to work, I'm at work, like anytime I could, and I'm like, I'm gonna do my first BRRRR, and I had no idea how, but that's kind of how I got started.
Like every good Canadian, you grew up playing hockey and you listen to the Breakthrough Real Estate Investing podcast. Yeah. That's the recipe for success for every Canadian.
Exactly.
I'm a horrible Canadian because like I don't even know. Somebody asked me the other day, where do I watch a hockey game? And I had to think about it for a couple minutes. And I'd never watch hockey, but yeah, you could probably watch it here. No, that's really interesting. And I would like to, I guess it was just the people that you were surrounded by that got this sort of idea into your head, but it takes, a different kind of 20-year-old or 18-year-old or whatever to actually be interested in the fact that somebody owns their own business or somebody has a couple of houses. Other people might just be like, oh, that's cool. Where's my beer?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But so tell us a little bit about like, why and how did you actually start to get interested in that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Like always just growing up, I just had like a strong work ethic. Like I think I started wanting to work at the age of like 12, 13, like in there. And my parents were like, no, like no one will hire you. Like you just can't get a job right now. Right. So like, I think like, just like always like growing up too, like at a young age, like I would be like around knocking on doors, trying to cut people's grass, like, anything I could do to just make more money. And like, I didn't even know really why I wanted, I just wanted more money, right? I just wanted to make money on my own. Like I always wanted to be independent. Right. And I think just, looking at these other people who, the lives they were living or the things they could do because they own maybe these businesses or because they own real estate, it just always like intrigued me. And then, seeing, other people working these jobs who didn't really have that or were always frustrated after work or just waiting for Friday night or the weekend to be happy. I think I just wanted to really change that and see how I could, start working towards that other way.
Yeah. And then, so at the one point where you found yourself working like, 70 hours a week, the light bulb, I guess, kind of, you went, okay, now I've learned how to work hard. And this is not the life that I wanted to live. So you decided to transition. Tell us a little bit about that.
Exactly. So, like I was starting, I was coming home late, like 8, 9, 10 o'clock every single night, leaving at 5, 4:35 to head back downtown to Toronto or way out in, who knows where. Right. And yeah, the money was good. But yeah, like I really started to see, I was tired. I wasn't feeling really well. Right. Like I was coming home grumpy, I wasn't around on the weekends. I wasn't able to hang out with friends, all this stuff. And I was just, I'm like, there has to be a better way to do this. Right. And then I think that's when I really started listening to like, personal development stuff and like podcasts. And like podcasts was kind of early, like at that stage too. I think 2015, 2016. I like heard a podcast, but I'm like, I don't really think I'm like a podcast person. Like I can't really like listen to, like long stuff like that. But then like driving on the DVP every single day for 2 hours or 3 or 4 hours every single day there and back, I'm like, hey, I can only listen to the radio so much, right? Like let's try it out. And I think your guys' podcast was the first one I ever listened to. And now I just all the time, anytime I'm in the car, have to listen to a podcast, have to always be learning and kind of growing, right? So yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting the changes that can happen in your mindset by just what you put into it and listen to, and all the people you're around can change really quickly. I think that's probably what happened with you. I think that's the age that we're in, right, where people are becoming entrepreneurs and and making some big success stories really quick and early in life partially because of that, the just the access to information that's out there.
Yeah, exactly. Especially now, like if you're, maybe it's not even real estate. If you're interested in something and you want to learn about it, like most people are on the road a couple hours a day, and you can use that time to propel yourself into what you want to be doing. I think that's really good.
Why don't we talk about your first purchase then? Because you kind of went through it pretty fast, but you took action on that, which was probably the hardest part, or it's usually one of the hardest parts, is actually like, hey, you found a place. You said it was a 200-foot lot or something. You said it sounded like a great piece of property potentially, but what allowed you to get over that? First of all, you had to find a private lender, which to me sounds like expensive money probably. So you had to convince yourself to maybe go through that process. How did that all happen, and what allowed you to get confident enough to actually pull the trigger on it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was looking for a lender forever. A lenders were out. I had no idea about B lenders, like absolutely no clue. Like anyone who wants to get started, like the amount of people I've talked to that don't know about B lenders and alternate, types of lending is just, it's insane, right? Because I was there too. I had no idea. I just knew what my parents told me. Like TD, Scotia, if they want to approve you, like you have to wait, right? So just the more people I talked to, like I would start asking anyone, like friends, family, other people we knew, right, who I knew owned businesses and money and stuff like that. And I finally found a private lender that was able to give me the mortgage on a 1-year term. I promised them, I said, I'm going to get this done and I'll have your money back in a year. And anyway, so he told me, yes, okay, we can go up to a certain amount of money. So I started looking, and my realtor called me in Uxbridge. He actually lived next door to my parents. And he called me and said, there's a house a couple streets over. It's like really run down. There's no pictures of the inside, but it's a really good price. It was $450,000 at the time. And so we scheduled a walkthrough, and he called me 10 minutes before the walkthrough, and he's like, I don't think we should go through this. Like, I just went through it earlier today, and I think your parents will kill me, like, if I take you guys through this. And I'm like, no, like, I want to go. So we went through with me, my dad, and my mom, and we're like, it's perfect. There's water in the basement. Like, there was no kitchen. There was just absolutely, like, just terrible, right? And we said, yeah, it's perfect. We'll make an offer. We went unconditional, which, obviously it was my first time making an offer. Went unconditional, was super, super scared. Ended up getting the offer. It was owned by the bank at that time. So we ended up getting it. And then, I just went to work every single day after work. I was there for 1 full year, doing everything I could. Every spare time I had, I was there working, learning, right? My dad joined me every weekend that he wasn't working. He was there, kind of teaching me too. I think at one point too, in the first couple of months, I actually reached out to you, Rob. I'm not sure if you remember. You probably talked to so many people, but I was listening to your guys' podcast for like probably the first 20 or 30 episodes. I reached out to you. I'm like, this guy isn't going to answer me. I'm like, this guy's on a podcast. I reached out to you and you answered. And I remember being so like grateful, right? Like, I'm like, how does a refinance work? I'm like, how do people pull their money out? Like, where does that money come from, right? Like, I had no idea. I remember after talking to you, I told my parents, like, I'm going to fix this place up. I'm going to do a duplex and, I'm going to pull all my money back out. And they're like, okay. Like, who have you been talking to, right? So anyways, long story short, I was able to do it, finished it in just under a year, had it refinanced, paid back that guy right at the 1 year mark. And then I got connected with Dion, and Dion was a person I heard on your guys' podcast early on. Reached out to Dion. I think, Rob, you recommended me to speak to him too. And that's when he introduced me to a private lender. Because, like, I couldn't get a mortgage at the start for $450,000. How was I going to get a mortgage for, the new appraised value to pull my money out? And, he just made it like a walk in the park. Went with a B lender on a 1 year term. And I think I've almost, refinanced that house every single year with the same B lender, with Dion, right? So it was pretty good.
Cool. And now you still have that property?
I do. Yes. Yeah.
Duplex renting. What do you think it's worth today?
Yeah. I actually just had it appraised. I'm refinancing it one last time at the end of this month. And then I'll probably wait. So it was just appraised at 1.15.
Nice. So
That doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy up here.
Yeah.
So taking action at that early stage kind of worked out, is what you're saying, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Waiting around might not have been the solution. Taking action and learning. I mean, even if it wasn't a success, sounds like it was for the most part, at least.
Right.
But
that's probably a huge eye opener for your parents too, wasn't it? Like, what did they think about that whole thing? Your first refinance.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I remember like talking to my mom a lot because like she's kind of like more like open to like ideas and stuff. My dad's like hardworking, right? Just had to work every day, just work hard, you know. And he like I couldn't get a mortgage at the start, so he's like in his head like right away. He's like he's not getting more money out. You know, like he's putting the money in and he's just going to have to wait another 5 years like everyone else. Right. But I remember, you know, talking to my mom, she was kind of telling him too, like, no, I think you might be able to do it. Like he's talking to this broker that says you might be able to do it. And I think everyone had, you know, we didn't really believe it. Even me, right? Like when Dion said, yeah, I can get you all your money out and approve for this much. And until it actually happened and I got, you know, the 160,000 or 140,000 back out, you know, they were like pretty taken back, right? And even them were like, wow, like how, right? Like at his age, how was he able to do that? And then it just kind of continued on from there. And I think every year that goes by, they're just more, you know, maybe taken back or, you know, they're starting to understand more, right? For sure.
Yeah, that's good. And so let's continue the journey. What did you do after that? Because that's a huge eye opener, like you said, and now you've got that money back in your hands. What happens next?
Yeah. So on that first project, I actually used like a Home Depot project loan, like 2 or 3 credit cards, lines of credit, like anything I could to get that project done. It was pretty stressful, pretty crazy. But yeah, I was finally able to pay off all those high interest loans, paid back the private lender. And now I had this high, interest rate or decent interest rate, right, with a B lender. I house hacked. I moved into the basement. I got a tenant upstairs. My first tenant experience was pretty crazy too. For the next couple of years, I guess in 2017, 2018, I really focused on flips at that time. You know, I just was really focused on getting, through my apprenticeship as quickly as I could. Because I see that when you get to the next term, you start making more money, right? So I wanted to continue to get through my apprenticeship as quick as I could, which meant, you know, crazy amount of hours. I really focused the next couple of years on flipping between Uxbridge, Port Perry, not making really anything like too crazy. But I did know that I had a passion for, you know, working with my hands. I could do all the electrical work, pretty much like 90% of the work in the house, other than like windows, furnace, a little bit of plumbing here and there. I could pretty much do it all, and I enjoyed it. So, I would spend my evenings doing that. And then 2019, I guess it really hit me like, why am I flipping these? Like, you just proved to yourself that you can do it on your very first one. Why are you not holding on to these, right? So I started doing more BRRRs again, started getting, into more buy and holds, duplex conversions. They're my absolute favorite. And through those couple of years too, I started, through your guys' podcast and everything too, like heard about like raising money and joint venture partnerships. And, through those couple of years, I really started talking to a lot of people, like having those conversations about trying to raise money, even though I knew nothing about it. But it was just having those conversations and trying to see like what questions they would ask me, right? And what I needed to be more prepared for in order to get into a joint ventureship or into a joint venture partnership, right? So 2019, back to the BRRRR strategy, started raising a little bit of capital and partnering up with people, because I kind of found that, a lot of people I talked to who were in partnerships, they would partner with working partners, but I found out like their working partners would just, hire contractors. And I'm like, well, I can be the contractor, right? So I don't want any money for doing the work, but, I'll own half the house, but I'll actually save us all money by doing all the work. And like actually doing the work, right? So that's kind of how I found my way into JVs. Started getting into some Airbnbs out in Calgary at the end of 2019, and just kind of continued to expand after that.
Yeah, and I think that that's pretty interesting because a lot of people do have that idea that, well, I don't know how to raise money, or I don't know how to do a joint venture partnership, but no, like people don't obviously realize that they don't know anything until they start to learn about it.
But
That's the
nobody
only way
was
that,
nobody was born into that, knowing that, right?
right.
So you got to
I
learn
mean,
it.
at one
You
point
gotta-
they learned the word joint venture.
yeah.
Before that, they didn't know it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's really cool. I love how you've grown over the years, man. That's good
I think
stuff.
that's one of the differentiators too with starting out young is that you can. I mean, that's an advantage over. I'm not going to do the work in a joint venture arrangement currently. Like I might have. I guess I did once.
Yeah, I have too.
I'm not the best person for it. I know that.
Yeah, that's the other thing, right?
Yeah.
I can do it, but you might not want me to.
Yeah. But you can like, you know, someone, if we were, which there's so much money out there, this is fairly unrealistic, but if we were competing over the same partner, I mean, you have a leg up on that in that sense that you can do the work and you can be the one there hands-on day to day, which saves the partnership money ultimately. It can make it a better deal. It might not be the best for scalability, but at least in the early going, I mean,
Yeah,
kind of have to
early
find
going.
ways to.
I'm willing to bet that now
Yeah.
you don't need to sweeten the pot like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it was kind of at the very start. And like I'm not taking away from like anyone who does joint venture partnerships because I know the value that people bring and I know that they have the teams in place and you know they have the experience and just everything that we know that comes along with a real estate deal start to finish, right? But it was just a way that I found to get started for the first year or two, build a track record with joint ventures, I can actually do the work, right? But you know, if you ever want to have, you know, 3-4 on the go at once, obviously I can't, I can't promise everyone that I'm going to be there doing all the work, right? But yeah, it for sure helped at the start.
So on that one, were you still getting home at like 8 o'clock at night and then going over there? Is that what you were doing?
For like the joint venture one?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like towards 2019 was, you know, when I started, I think by then 2016. Yeah, by then I was in the end of my third term or early fourth term. So I was making like really good money. Like I always said, if I just make it to my fourth term, then it's like, hey, you're making better money, you know, each hour now, right? So I started to scale back a little bit at work and work a lot less. And in 2019 is when I really started to try to focus more on real estate.
So they weren't like, oh, we had this guy that used to like, give me all the hours you can. He was working 70 hours. Now he's like, well, I guess I can do 44 this week.
Yeah.
Maybe let's scale back to 40 next week.
Yeah, off at 2:30. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Cool. So what were some, I mean, you've touched on some, is there any other big challenges they had that we didn't cover there starting out or they've had over the years? What were some of the key challenges along the way?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest couple challenges was just, you know, people saying you're too young, and it's like just having a strong, you know, to overcome that, it's just having a strong, you know, mindset and saying no, like in your own head, right? Like being like, no, I will find a way no matter what anyone else tells me, right? Like, thank you for your opinion, but I'll go find a way to do it, right? It almost motivated me more when people told me you got to wait 2 or 3 years, because I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna go get one this year. And then I think too is just, you know, just being around people that you know, would be negative around it, right? Or like you're making a bad decision, or like, why are you using credit cards, or why are you using lines of credit, right? And it's just, it really helped you keep listening to your guys' podcast or listening to other, you know, real estate investors talk around how they were, you know, able to do it, and kind of just reassuring myself like, okay, I think I am on the right track. But, you know, it would have really helped to have someone, a couple people, like just personally to, you know, really, be confident with that, right?
Well, I think it is, well, you know, people could argue against or for using credit cards, using high interest loans, etc. Certainly when you're 21 or so, they're like, yeah, it's risky still, but I mean, what's the worst case? Worst case, you end up where you already are, kind of thing, right? Like you know, maybe you lost 10 grand or 20 grand, maybe worst case, but you can, like, if any time in life you're going to kind of play that risk, and like that's the time, right? Early on, when you don't have much for responsibilities yet, and you don't have a lot of other people depending on you and that sort of thing. I mean, that's certainly a reason to start earlier as well. Is just there's a lot less to lose.
And I think you make a good point. I think you make a good point about, people, when you're sort of still impressionable, and especially when it's somebody talking to you that you respect and they don't understand what you're doing, they will try to give you the best advice that's worked for them. They're not out to hurt you, but they're like, this is what I know. I know you don't go just doing renovations on a credit card. You just don't do that, right? Like, so they're, and that can be pretty damaging at some points. If the wrong or right, or that person that you respect, gives you information contrary to what you're doing, and you go, oh man, maybe I am making the wrong move. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. And like that can really send you off on a different track. So I think it is important, like you said, you went back and started going, okay, am I doing the right thing? Let's hear some other people that have been doing this. Like you can find all kinds of examples, even on this show. Like I think I remember early on Julie Broad, when she was on, saying that when they started, they were just like maxing out credit cards left, right, center to get their rentals done. And lots of people have done that. So yeah, it is interesting though. I do think that you've got to filter what you let in, for sure.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay. So you have a program or like something set up to help other investors. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was in 2020, early 2020. It was kind of at the beginning of the pandemic, but I wasn't like a lot of other people where like maybe they lost their job and they had to figure out another way to keep going, right? Like we had a ton of work at the University of Toronto, hospitals, everything. Like I could continue to work crazy hours, but it was more at the beginning of 2020 when I realized, okay, like I want to focus more on real estate. I want to do this full time. I was pretty much at the end of my apprenticeship. I had all my hours. I just had to go write. So I told my boss I'm going to take like a month or two off. And anyways, that was like a whole other thing. And my parents too, I told them, we were slow at work, right? I said, we were slow at work. I'm going to take some time off, blah, blah, blah. And that's when I really started focusing on real estate investing, kind of started to be more aggressive with it. And I really realized that I had a passion for helping people. Like over those last 2 or 3 years leading up to 2020, I was helping friends and family too, teaching them everything I learned. And I really found that there was a lot of people like myself in 2016, like when I first got started, that didn't know anything. And like, I would have loved to have one person to just go and talk to, or to have a call with every single week to like, know, like, am I buying the right property? Or, is it okay to use a credit card? Or is it okay to do a private loan that, my parents are telling me not to do? So, I started kind of testing the waters, coaching and mentoring people individually, right? Spending time with them every single week, always being available to them. So that's kind of where that started, early 2020. And now it's turned more into, growing a big like-minded community where, the majority of people are beginner investors who just need, that help to get started, right? Need to know how to get into real estate, need to know that they're doing it the right way and that they can continue to grow and scale after that first one. And they don't make a mistake early on. Because like you said, Rob, it can, be a big, it could play a big role in not being able to move on, or maybe getting scared of real estate in the beginning and then not continuing in it, right? So, it's basically just being there for those people, coaching and mentoring them individually every single week, and making sure that they're able to grow and scale.
Well, you even mentioned earlier on that your first tenant experience wasn't great. Like, I know there's a story there, but so that kind of thing can really help. There's a lot of people that just don't get into this because of the whole tenant idea. And then the ones that do, if they have bad experiences at the beginning, sometimes it can lead them to just say, okay, forget it, I'm out. But with a community like this, I think it's super important because everybody's had, at least everyone that's actually active in real estate has had issues, right, that they've got to overcome. you
Right.
can decide to quit, and then it will definitely go away. But it's not like that same issue is going to happen over and over and over again. There's going to be different ones, right? And so when you conquer that one, there is going to be another one. And in a community like this, there's often many people who have seen sort of a similar thing and can help you through it.
Right. Absolutely.
Where do people go to check that out and learn more about that? What's the best site or link for them to connect with?
Yeah, I would say HutchinsonRealEstateInvesting.com is my website, or everyone can check out the free Facebook group. On Facebook, obviously, it's called the Breakaway from the 9 to 5 with 4 R's. So because I love the BRRRR method.
I know there's a bunch of R's. I was going to clarify. Good, you got it. 4 R's.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's probably the best spot.
Is there 4 R's or 3?
4.
There's 4 R's. What's the last R for?
Repeat, yeah. I always went back and forth. Is it 3 or 4?
Wait a minute. Okay.
We could add lots of R's on there. We could add more.
Yeah, a couple more R's.
Repeat again.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's super cool. I think a lot of people should check that out and go learn more about what you're doing and connect with you and others in that group, because for all the reasons Rob said, there's so many. Yeah, and it's cool that the pandemic kind of has helped with a lot of these sort of things. I've heard about this in a lot of industries where it's kind of, obviously made people reach out to find other ways to connect, and glad you built out something there to help with that. So that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
You also help people one-on-one too from that, right? You do take on some coaching clients and support them through. Is it usually are they usually scaling up, or are they doing their first BRRRR or flip type project, or what's that usually look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically people will come in, right? I help people across Canada. We have quite a few, like obviously the majority of clients are here in Ontario. A lot of clients are like Calgary, Edmonton, Saskatchewan as well. People will come in, I'll coach them every week, for as long as they need it, right? Like a couple of things I'm trying to do different than like other coaching programs or group coaching programs is always have that kind of individual coaching that people need, right? Because everyone moves at their own, pace. Everyone has their own questions. Everyone, people don't like to ask questions in front of others, right? So I really feel that people need like the individual coaching, and I don't put a timeline on it, because if I'm doing my job, I'm getting people, confident one day, enough to go out and do it on their own, right? So I always want to have them a part of the community, always be able to give back and help others. Clients are starting to joint venture with each other. We do like group calls every single weekend as well with like the whole group, so everyone can ask questions from each other too. So it's just kind of helping them start to finish on their journey, whether that is their first BRRRR, BRRRR number 2, 3, 4, or their first 2 or 3 flips, however long it takes to get them confident enough to, obviously they need a lot less of my help, right?
And get them into action, basically, right?
Exactly. Holding them accountable.
Cool. What else are you doing for the future? What are you investing a lot yourself? Are you helping others? Are you doing a combo of that, or what's on the horizon?
Yeah, I think a combination of that. I don't think I'm ever going to leave. Trying to help other people. Whether that's coaching, mentoring, and things like that. I really enjoy that. I love seeing people scared like I was to just absolutely crushing it and changing their life, right? So I love that. Obviously this year I'm really starting to focus more now that I've kind of built out the coaching program, tested that out and stuff, to start investing more myself. A lot more joint ventures, starting to look more into multifamily, Airbnbs. We did Airbnb Arbitrage for 2 years in Calgary. We managed them all from here. Now that we've tested the market there, seeing what units perform the best and stuff like that, we're going to actually buy a couple of those units. So, we're working towards that too, which will be super, super cool. So just basically, looking at all opportunities, trying to help as many people as I can, and, just kind of continue on.
Airbnb Arbitrage, I believe we have talked about that on the show, but just mention what that is, because you threw out a kind of a buzzword there that maybe some people aren't familiar with.
Yeah. So Airbnb Arbitrage is like, for example, if a person wants to get into Airbnb or real estate, it's kind of a cool way to get started, but not have to actually buy a property, right? So pretty much the only startup cost to Airbnb Arbitrage is your first and last month's rent, right? It's basically when you go and rent a house or rent a condo or rent a unit from a landlord, just like a long-term tenant would, and then you then go and Airbnb that unit out, right? So you'll pay them a fixed amount each month. So, call it $2,000, but then you might go make $3,000 or, $4,000 off that unit each month. And then you just have to manage it and stuff like that. But it's a cool way to get started, kind of get the experience of managing units, speaking with tenants, making some pretty good income too. But again, like you guys said at the beginning of this show, we really just have to look into the rules, the regulations, wherever you're going to do this.
Yeah. And obviously make sure that it's in your contract and that everything's on the up and up, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Always make sure to tell your landlord that you intend to do that for sure.
Cool.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask you, what's a piece of info or advice that's always stuck with you? We're sort of big on that this episode, I think.
Yeah. So I would say, to not give up, like I just, there's always the people that, like we kind of mentioned before, in your ear saying, no, don't do it like this, don't do it like that. But then there's the other side of things. If you expose yourself to it, right, through podcasts, through, building your network, through like-minded individuals, there's always that half of the people who say, keep going, you can do it. We've all been where you are, we've made it through, right? So I think it just would be, don't give up, right? If you get told no, from a bank or a lender or, a joint venture partner, just don't give up, right? Just keep going. Like if you have to talk to 20 joint venture partners before you get one, you will get one, right? Or if you have to talk to 30 different lenders before getting a loan, you will get one, right? There is always a way. That's what I like to tell my clients a lot is that, it's not a matter of, if there's a way, it's just a matter of how, right? We just have to find that way.
It's always funny how quickly people give up on lots of things in life, right? Like, you get how many joint ventures have you talked? Oh, I can't raise any money; it's too hard. Okay, well, how many people have you talked to? Like 3?
Yeah,
3, 4. Yeah, so go talk to 30 or 40. Like you're gonna find it. It's guaranteed. Exactly. It's almost guaranteed, basically.
Yeah, it is.
Like in those scenarios you're talking about, I would go as far as saying it is guaranteed. You just have to talk to the right person on the right day or the right time. Like you just need to have more conversations. Like it's totally doable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good advice. Tough at times to really never give up on these things. And the people that don't give up and power through those situations are the ones that end up finding success at the end of the day and end up buying properties at 21 and making some cool changes to their wealth and their path in life. It can change pretty fast. Because if I correct me if I'm wrong, you kind of threw aside the electrical thing and
absolutely.
You haven't. It's been what, a couple of years now since you've been involved in that?
Yeah, absolutely. And leading up to when I left, like I would always tell people that last year that I worked with every day, I'm like, I'm leaving, and people would be like, you got 40 more years until you can retire, and I'm like, I'm leaving this year. And then,
they think you're crazy, I'm sure.
Yeah. For sure. So yeah, it's been good.
Yeah, I do think that one thing that we've seen over the years is when we ask about challenges, typically it's mindset, and really that financial piece is probably one of the biggest challenges that we hear about.
Right.
So yeah, definitely.
If it's more, the mindset, we can fix that, right? We can start learning every single day, take advantage of those drives and stuff like that. But if it's like financial, I think people just it's very important. And like I heard it a lot early on too. Like if you don't have the financial piece to it and you want to get started, there's other ways to get started. You just have to find a way to just bring value to a person who has the capital, right? Like it's all about just trying to figure out ways to, okay, he or she has capital. How do I, bring value to them to put their money to work, right? Or like, how do I present it in a way to them that, they're going to be making a better return with me, right? So I think that's a big piece of advice too, is just, find a way to speak to people, find a way to, present it in ways that, you come across as valuable.
Absolutely. That's good advice. Well, I suggest that everyone listening, everybody, reach out to Cole, have a conversation and get some of his insights and some of his positive attitude here, because I think it's really going to be helpful for you. Anyone that wants to do that, Cole, how would they go about it?
Yeah, either on Facebook or Instagram at the Breakaway from the 9 to 5, or my email is hutchinson.contracting@outlook.com. I can give Sandy my phone number too. I'm always available to talk. I always like to talk to anyone who wants to talk about real estate. So
that's awesome. Thanks for sharing with us today, man.
Absolutely. I really appreciate
you coming on.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. It was fun.
Sandy, how can people get in touch with you?
Easiest way is Sandy at Freedom Reps, FREEDOMREPS.com, or they can just look me up on Instagram, Facebook, and connect with me that way too.
Yeah, and people can reach me at rob@mrbreakthrough.ca. Thanks for joining, guys. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.